The image you are seeing is the last known photograph of a young woman just moments before she was gone forever. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Alexis Murphy. Viewer discretion is advised. Alexis was born on June 5th, 1996, and she lived in Charlottesville, Virginia. She was described as a young woman who was joyful, she was vibrant, animated, she was incredibly athletic, she had an infectious personality, she had a warm and loving heart. It sounds like her sense of humor was top-notch, and her smile could light up a room or make anyone who was sad just immediately feel happy. She was also a very generous, kind person in regards to kids at school who may have been considered like loners or who never really seemed to interact with anyone. She would always try to make sure that those kids got attention, at least from her. Her family would say that Alexis was big on making sure every person felt appreciated, felt they had value in their life. Honestly, Alexis sounds like someone that I wish I had or I knew when I was in high school. She was great at just letting people vent to her. She would just lend an ear, a shoulder to cry on. Whatever the person needed, she would be that person for them. At the time of this story, she's, 17 years old, so it sounds like even for a 17-year-old, she sounded like a really mature adult, person. Her family would say that she loved her brothers dearly, but they annoyed the shit out of her. I'm the youngest brother of four, so I can understand. I was reading through one of the obituaries about Alexis, and her family said that even to this day, they can still hear the faint shuffling of her slippers sort of just going down the hallway. They can still hear the dragging of her iPhone charger cord, just kind of scraping against the floor as she woke up and walked to the living room or kitchen. And that just gives her family some kind of happiness that they can remember her for even the little details like that. Back in 2013, Alexis was considered kind of like a smaller social media influencer because, back then she had 12,000 plus followers on Twitter. And for Twitter back then, and even sometimes today, that's considered a lot of people. So she was someone who would report everything she was doing. If she was going somewhere, she would tweet it. And on August 3rd, 2013, she had tweeted out that she was, going to go to a salon a little bit out of her way to purchase some new hair extensions. So she was just letting people know, hey, this is what I'm doing, on my way, kind of thing. So some point in the afternoon of August 3rd, 2013, she would leave her house, which was in Shipman, Virginia at the time. The plan she had was to drive to Lynchburg, where the salon was, and the only plan she had was to go there to purchase the hair extensions. She was driving her father's 2003 white Nissan Maxima, something she did all the time. Her family said that when she left, she was in great spirits. She was happy and smiling. She said, I'll be back. She did have a curfew of about midnight, and she never ever missed her curfew. She was always home, even before the curfew had hit. But after several hours had passed, they hadn't heard anything from Alexis. There wasn't even any activity on her Twitter page, which that part was kind of unusual. But when midnight hit and she still wasn't home, her family was a little more than concerned at that point. They tried calling her. They couldn't get a hold of her. They tried texting her. She didn't respond. She hadn't called anyone, so something feels off. By the following morning, when she still wasn't home, the family would call the salon she was supposed to go to, but they said she never got there. She never stepped into the salon that day that she was supposed to be there. So they call police right then and there and report Alexis missing. This is also when they would use the Find My iPhone app to see if they could find out at least where her phone was. And usually that means that's where she would be too. So the Find My iPhone app said that she had last pinged in the area of Arrington, Virginia. And according to the map that it showed, it was on this like giant 5,000 acre property. They did a cursory search of like the outer areas of that property because they didn't have any kind of warrants or anything at that point, but they didn't find her cell phone in the general area where it was supposed to have been. Once police are involved, they begin driving down Route 29, the direction that Alexis would have been taking, just to see if they can maybe find her car, any signs that maybe her car went off the road, but there was nothing. Now, police had already requested her cell phone records a couple of days, prior to when they finally got them. But when they did, they noticed a couple of things. They noticed that she, again, hadn't sent any text messages or phone calls after a certain time, which was very unusual for her. They also noticed that one of the locations her cell phone was in prior to the last ping was at a gas station called the Liberty gas station. And this was in Lovingston, Virginia. Where the cell phone pinged last when they used the Find My iPhone app, this is about, I think, 40 miles, I believe, was the distance in between the gas station and where it was supposed to have finally been. So police were then able to obtain the CCTV footage of the gas station from the time frame that her cell phone said she was there, and they found her. Alexis was arriving at the gas station. She parked her car. She was wearing like the clothing she was in when she left, according to her family. She seemed to be perfectly fine. She didn't seem like she was in any kind of duress. There was nothing negative going on that they could tell. The footage also shows a man opening the door for her as she is entering. And then they also see that same man opening the door for her when she left the gas station. So once they get the CCTV footage pulled up, the employees do remember, okay, now I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I remember seeing her. They also remember the man that they saw kind of helping her, like letting her in and out of the gas station. They recognized him mainly because of his Daffy Duck tattoo he had on his neck. But they also recognized him as like a regular. And when police circulated his image around the area, there was also a gentleman from a porn shop who also recognized the man. And they were all able to identify him as Randy Taylor. He was a 48-year-old man who lived in the area. A few days after she goes missing, police get a call that Alexis's vehicle has been found. It was found 70 miles away from the destination she was supposed to be going to, Lynchburg. It was actually found parked in the parking lot of a movie theater. When they looked in the car, there was nothing out of the ordinary. She didn't leave anything behind. There was no signs of struggle. It just looked like she parked her car, took all of her, purse and everything, and just walked to go shopping or something. But obviously, there were no signs of Alexis there at all. No one in the area recalls seeing her, so police were able to finally get CCTV footage from the parking lot, and they see when the car is parked. The car was parked shortly after 10 p.m. on August 4th, which would be the following day after she went missing. Unfortunately, the footage was so grainy that they could not make out who the individual was that got out of the vehicle. They did notice that someone left it, and obviously they never came back to it. So they circle back to the gas station footage, and they begin to look even further. They also start looking at cameras on the outside. They notice that Randy Taylor does show up in his large pickup truck with one of those camper tops, and it has this big camouflage strip around it. So they noticed that when Randy's vehicle pulls out of the gas station, Alexis's vehicle pulls out right after him and seems to be following him out of the gas station. And when she turns, she's going the opposite directions that she would have been going. From what I also understand, I think they found footage from the freeway that also showed her following him in just one particular strip of the road. And they are driving in the direction where Randy lived. Police finally question Mr. Taylor, and he said that he was never at the gas station. They must be mistaken, because he was purchasing marijuana from another person far away from that. But when they present him with sort of the footage they have, even though he says, "Well, you must be mistaken," he then changes his tune, like, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe that was me. You know what? Now I remember." So what he said was that, okay, so at the gas station, Alexis was there with another man. He was like a tall black man. He even recalls his name. He said his name was Damian Bradley. And so what happened is the two of them just so happened to be talking to Randy Taylor, and Randy offered to sell them marijuana from his property. By the way, the CCTV footage from the gas station showed nobody else with Alexis. No one walked in there with her. From what they can tell, there was no one in her car with her, and the employees who were there said, "We don't remember seeing anyone with her." This is why he was saying she was following him, was because of that. Now, police, they find out who this Damian Bradley person is, and they clear him within hours because he provides an alibi. His alibi is supported not only by people, but by footage where he was nowhere even remotely close to the whole gas station situation. Now, police find out that Randy Taylor lives on a large property in this sort of like decrepit, older, abandoned-looking house, and then he also has his camper trailer parked on this property. This property just so happens to be on that 5,000-acre lot of space where her cell phone was pinged on the Find My iPhone app. But they still haven't recovered her phone. But he claims, yep, they got there, I sold them the pot, and then they both left. So if anything happened to her, it must have been Damien. But again, police were like, no, because he wasn't there. We know this for sure. So Mr. Taylor's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Not my problem. Not my issue. So as police are done questioning him at his property, they kind of do like a basic search, and 70 feet away from his camper is a broken iPhone. It has like a shattered screen. Turns out it's Alexis's cell phone. So police at that point were pretty confident that Alexis Murphy never left his property. So 4 days after she is gone and they find this cell phone, and with the little evidence they have, they're now able to obtain a warrant to do a thorough search of Randy Taylor's property. Inside, they find a broken fingernail. There was a very small, like diamond stud earring, and also a strand of black hair. So the two items plus the hair provided enough DNA for them to check, and when they matched it to a known sample they were able to collect from her personal belongings, like a hairbrush, I think, they were able to confirm that the DNA on those items and the hair was from Alexis Murphy. So those items were in Randy Taylor's home. At that point, they have enough evidence to, at the very least, arrest him and charge him with kidnapping. But again, they don't have a body, so they can't say for sure that she was murdered. For all they know, she could be hidden somewhere on this property, or maybe he put her somewhere else. So this is when the FBI is able to conduct their own search, and they do a huge search of the property, but they find more evidence. Stashed underneath one of his couch's cushions, they found a hair extension, they found false eyelashes. They also find the exact blue t-shirt that Randy Taylor was wearing when he was seen on the footage at the gas station with Alexis. That t-shirt had blood spatter on it. When they test all the items for DNA, including the blood, again, it matched Alexis Murphy. Randy Taylor, again, continues to deny. I don't know what you guys are talking about. She left my property fine. So, although it's kind of weird, Mr. Taylor, that she would leave without a hair extension, her eyelashes, her cell phone. Really? Come on. So, they up his charges now. So not only is he charged with kidnapping, but he's also charged with first-degree murder. Now, in Virginia, they are allowed to prosecute a murder charge without a body. Some states you're not allowed to do that. Some states are okay with it. As long as there's enough evidence to prove that the individual is very likely deceased. And at this point, they had enough. Randy's defense would argue, well, then she must have been killed by this unknown man that Randy says, she was with. Again, sir, we have proven that man was not with her. The jury would not buy anything Randy Taylor was saying, and with all of the physical evidence, and there was plenty of it, not to mention circumstantial evidence, the jury was able to find him guilty of all charges, and he hadn't been sentenced yet. So before his sentencing, Randy Taylor comes out and says the prosecution was overzealous and they were going after me for like racial crimes. They said I only targeted black women. He was just kind of ripping into everyone. They didn't really care though. His defense would also come out and say, so there was apparently DNA found in Alexis's car that did not match her, that did not match Randy Taylor. So when news broke out that another killer was in the area, his name was Jesse Matthew, and he was accused of not only kidnapping but also murdering 2 women in the area. Randy Taylor said, hey, can you test the unknown DNA found in Alexis's car against Jesse Matthew? Believe it or not, they did. They said, okay, fine, we'll test it. Guess what? Not a match. Did not match Jesse Matthew at all. So then Randy Taylor's like, God damn it. Okay, well, listen, I'm telling you, prosecution, that I did not kill her, all right? Somebody else killed her. But I can tell you where that person buried her body if you agree to have the sentence be just 20 years. Not 20 years to life. He was saying, I will tell you where her body is that I did not hide, that someone else hid, okay? If you just give me 20 years for this murder and kidnapping. The prosecution was like, okay, no. They asked the family, of course, but they're like, no, we're not going to give you just 20 years. So the judge said, go screw yourself. You are now sentenced to 2 life sentences. 1 for the kidnapping, 1 for the murder. Oh, and guess what? It turns out that this was not the very first woman that Randy Taylor was accused of possibly kidnapping or murdering. Back in 2012, I believe, a 19-year-old girl by the name of Samantha Clark, who lived in Orange, Virginia, she would vanish. So this was just a few months after Samantha Clark had graduated high school. The night she disappeared, her mother said she was going out to meet a friend. She didn't say who the friend was, but her mother suspected it was probably at least one of the people that the 2 of them had met a week prior at a bar. So these 3 men that they met a week prior were these 2 young guys, and then they were also with an older guy by the name of Randy Taylor. Then a week later, Samantha goes out to meet a friend, and then she's never seen again. It should be noted that one of the men was a 23-year-old guy who Samantha had apparently become very smitten with pretty quickly. But I guess this man had a girlfriend, and the girlfriend allegedly threatened Samantha to back off and stay away from her man. By the way, the name of that man is, I don't know. I don't see it anywhere. Randy had apparently texted or called Samantha at some point during the week, because they already had her phone number, and said, you should probably stay away from that guy because he has a criminal history. He's a bad guy. As a matter of fact, when they pull up phone records, Randy Taylor was essentially the last person to have communicated with Samantha Clark before she vanished. Samantha's mom firmly believes at that time, when it actually happened, that Randy Taylor had something to do with her disappearance, and now even more so after he was convicted of the murder of Alexis Murphy. And this, by the way, Alexis Murphy was only like almost about a year or so after Samantha disappeared. But in this case, police had no evidence. There was no physical evidence that they ever found connecting him to the disappearance of Samantha Clark. All they had was cell phone stuff, but none of that was incriminating at that point. And Samantha has, to this day, she's never been found. I do want to wrap this story up with positive news, as positive as I could be. Alexis Murphy has finally been found. On December 3rd, 2020, police were given a tip, and who that tip came from is unknown, that there were human remains on this private property off Route 29, again, the same route that Alexis was going on and where she, eventually was probably killed. So police go there, and they recover these skeletal remains of a person, which they're able to then eventually, I think it took a couple of months, I think it was in February of the following year, that they were finally able to confirm with certainty that it was the remains of Alexis Murphy. They have not announced her cause of death, but from what I understand, it's still murder, so they must have had something to confirm. But again, they haven't released who they got the information from, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. At the very least, they can't have their daughter back alive, but at least now the family has closure to the story. They've now been able to bury their young girl. And that is the end of that story. I think the lesson to take away, and this is nothing against any of the people involved in this, but, one of the reasons why I like to tell these true crime stories is because you can find something educational out of them. Unfortunately, things like this happen, but from it, we can learn of things to not do. So I think it goes without saying that, never follow a strange man from a gas station, of course. But if you do, if you're ever meeting a stranger or you're following a stranger, I would always recommend telling someone exactly what you're doing. Tell them where you're going. Take photos, send them to one of your closest friends. And maybe if you can sneak a photo of the person's license plate you're going to go meet. Send it to your friends. Tell at least one person, if you're going somewhere you were not intending to go with someone you did not know ahead of time, and maybe it's a date from someone you met online, always tell someone, at least one person, everything you can about that person, so that way if anything should happen, people can reveal the information and you might be found sooner. So if you want to see more stories from me in significantly shorter form, like 3-minute form, you can head on over to my TikTok, where I've told probably over 2,000 stories at this point, with a whole lot more true crime stuff. I have about 2.7 million followers over there. I'm trying to get them to come over here as well, slowly but surely. But yeah, you can go ahead and give me a follow over there as well. If you have a case you want me to cover, please go to my link tree, which is in my description below of this video. Click on the link tree, go to where it says crime case list, and you can scroll through all of the names I have on my list. I have well over 4,200 at this point. So it's alphabetical for the most part, but you can search if you're on a computer, hit Control F, and then type in the name. If you're on a phone, hit the 3 dots at the top, then hit find and replace, then put in the name, and then the name will come up. If the name does not show up of what you want me to cover, then send me an email to mikey@truecrimerer.com, which is also in the description below. Just tell me the name, where it happened, when it happened, and then I can make sure I add that name to my list. Please be patient. I get lots of emails. It may be a while before I respond, and also be patient when it comes to covering the case you want. Again, I have a lot, and I choose them at random. So, could be tomorrow, could be 7 weeks from now. I don't know. So, please be patient. Thank you. All right, so, the North remembers, huh? Maybe you should say the North remembers ... but not the last 3 episodes. But That one's kind of junky on a shirt, but whatever. Okay. And I will see you on the next video. And until then, tooty toots, fruity fruit crimerers. What the, that, Okay, let's note that down as one to not use. Okay.